Millionaire pretended to be a poor worker to test his blind date. Unexpectedly fell in love at first sight. Many of you have been asking when I would upload a passionate love story filled with beautiful romance. Well, here it is, my gift to my most beautiful family. I'm not asking you to watch until the end. Some think I'm begging for views, but you don't know how deeply I love you, my beautiful family. Hi, my beautiful family. May the Almighty bless every woman with unshakable strength, endless dignity, and a heart that shines brighter than the sun. May He protect the mothers who carry us, the sisters who guide us, the wives who stand beside us, and the daughters who light up our homes. May no woman in this family ever feel weak, unheard, or unloved, because in God's eyes, she is a queen. My channel is dying because many of you don't get notifications. Please, just like and comment on this video. It takes only 2 seconds from you, but it gives strength to me and keeps this family alive. Every story I bring is written with love and respect for you. Stay with me until the end, because your trust is my hope and your loyalty is my power. If your heart is true, right, present. If your love is real, right, I am with Mr. Peter. The salt-worn diner on Harbour Street had never seen a millionaire deliberately dressed in threadbare flannel. But then again, Sam Rukin had never been a man who followed expectations. He sat in the corner booth of Maggie's diner, his calloused hands, roughened deliberately over the past week, wrapped around a coffee mug that had seen better decades. The September wind rattled the windows, carrying the scent of ocean and diesel from the docks. His docks, though no one in this establishment would ever guess that the man in the faded workshirt owned half of Bellhaven's waterfront. "You sure about this?" Theodore had asked him that morning, standing in the marble foyer of Sam's estate. "Lying to a woman before you've even met her?" "It's not lying," Sam had replied, though the words tasted bitter even then. "It's selective truth. I work at the docks." "That's true." Theodore had shaken his head. "You own the docks, Sam. There's a difference." But Sam was tired, bone-deep, soul-weary tired, of women who saw his bank account before they saw him. The last 3 relationships had ended the same way, with women who spoke of love while their eyes calculated yacht prices and vacation homes. At 32, he wanted something real, something that had nothing to do with the Rukin shipping fortune. The bell above the door chimed, and Sam looked up from his coffee. Time stopped. She walked in like autumn personified, a burgundy dress that complemented her deep brown skin, a wool coat the color of fallen leaves, and eyes that held the warmth of aged whiskey. But it wasn't her beauty that made Sam's breath catch. It was the way she paused at the threshold, closing her eyes briefly to inhale the diner's familiar scent of coffee and pie, a small smile playing at her lips as if coming home. Sophia Benson had been dreading this blind date for a week. Penelope meant well, but the last man she'd set her up with had spent the entire evening explaining why jazz was inferior to classical music, while she, a piano teacher who lived and breathed both, had bitten her tongue bloody. "He's different," Penelope had promised. "He works with his hands, real salt-of-the-earth type, no pretensions." Sophia scanned the diner, and her gaze landed on the man in the corner booth. He was already looking at her, and something in his grey eyes made her stomach flutter in a way it hadn't in years. Not conventionally handsome, his nose had been broken at least once, and his jaw held a stubborn set. But there was something about the way he stood up when he saw her, the old-fashioned gesture both unexpected and touching. "Sophia." His voice was deeper than she'd expected, roughened by sea air. "Sam." Not a question. She knew the way one knows the melody of a song they've never heard before, but somehow recognize. He pulled out her chair, another antiquated gesture that somehow didn't feel performative, and she caught the scent of him. Soap, coffee, and something uniquely masculine that made her pulse quicken. "Theodore didn't tell me much about you," Sam said, settling back into his booth. Just that you were a teacher, and that you'd, and I quote, knock my socks clean off. Sophia laughed, a rich sound that made several patrons look over and smile. Penelope told me you were a dock worker who read poetry in his spare time. I accused her of making you up. Do I seem made up? There was something vulnerable in the question, hidden beneath the humor. No, Sophia said softly, studying his face. You seem like someone who's trying very hard to be exactly who he is. The irony of her words wasn't lost on Sam, but he pushed the guilt aside. This was temporary. A few dates to see if she could care for him without the money. Then he'd tell her everything. What kind of teaching do you do? He asked, genuinely curious. Piano, mainly. Some music theory at the community center. Her eyes lit up as she spoke. I have this student, Lucy. She's 7. Yesterday she played her first complete piece, Für Elise, and when she finished, she looked at me with these huge eyes and said, Ms. Sophia, my fingers made magic. Sam found himself leaning forward, captivated not by her beauty, but by her passion. You love it. More than anything, music it's the language people speak when words aren't enough. It's how we touch the divine without leaving Earth. She paused, embarrassed. I'm sorry, I get carried away. Don't apologize. He reached across the table, his fingers barely grazing hers. Passion isn't something to hide. The waitress, Maggie herself, 60 years old and sharp as winter wind, appeared with menus. She looked at Sam with narrowed eyes, and for a moment he feared recognition. But she simply said, The meatloaf's good tonight. Made it myself. They ordered, meatloaf for him, the fisherman's stew for her, and fell into conversation with the ease of old friends. Sophia told him about growing up in Bellhaven. The only black family on her street for years, how music had been her refuge and rebellion both. Sam told her carefully edited truths, his love of the ocean, his work at the docks, letting her assume he was a longshoreman, his mother's death when he was 15. She played piano too, he said quietly. Every evening after dinner, said it was her way of putting the day to rest. Sophia's hand found his across the table. Music holds our ghosts gently. They lingered over coffee and shared a piece of apple pie, neither wanting the evening to end. When Sophia laughed at his story about seagulls stealing his lunch, her head thrown back in genuine mirth, Sam felt something shift in his chest, tectonic plates of his heart rearranging themselves around this woman he'd known for exactly 3 hours. Outside, the September evening had turned cold. Sam walked her to her car, an aging station wagon that had seen better decades, and struggled with the urge to tell her everything right then. I'd like to see you again, he said instead. Tomorrow's Saturday. I have lessons until noon, but after. There's a place I'd like to show you, nothing fancy, he added quickly, maintaining his fiction. Just somewhere beautiful. She smiled, and it was like sunrise over water. I'd like that. As she drove away, Sam stood in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, watching her taillights disappear. Theodore would say he was a fool. His business partners would call it unnecessary deception. But standing there in the salt-sweet night air, Sam knew only one truth. He was already falling, and falling hard, for Sophia Benson. The walk back to where he'd parked his truck, deliberately beat up, borrowed from Hudson, felt like floating. He'd had first dates in Parisian restaurants, on private jets, in exclusive clubs where champagne cost more than most people's rent. But nothing had ever felt as real as sharing meatloaf and conversation with Sophia in a worn-out diner booth. She'd looked at him like he was somebody worth knowing, not for what he could buy her, but for who he was, or who she thought he was. The guilt twisted in his stomach, but he pushed it down. A few more dates, just enough to know if what he'd felt tonight was real. Then he'd tell her everything and pray she'd understand. Chapter 2. The Harbour Walk. Saturday arrived dressed in fog, the kind that turned Belhaven into a watercolour painting where edges blurred and the ordinary became mysterious. Sam waited at the harbour's entrance, hands shoved deep in the pockets of a canvas jacket that had actually belonged to his grandfather, a real fisherman, before the family fortune grew from honest work into inherited wealth. He'd been standing there for 20 minutes, though they'd agreed on 2 o'clock. The anticipation was killing him slowly, sweetly. "You're early too." He spun around to find Sophia standing behind him, wrapped in a green scarf that made her eyes look like polished amber. She'd been watching him, he realized, this man who shifted his weight from foot to foot like a teenager waiting for his first date. "Couldn't stay away," he admitted, then felt heat rise in his cheeks. "From the harbour, I mean. I love it when it's like this, all fog and mystery." She stepped closer, and he caught her scent. Vanilla and something floral, jasmine maybe. "Show me your harbour, Sam." Your harbour. If only she knew how literally true that was. He owned 60% of the commercial waterfront, the fishing fleet, 3 of the 5 processing plants. But today, he was just Sam the dock worker, showing a beautiful woman the places he loved. They walked along the wooden boardwalk, their footsteps echoing hollow over the water. The fog muffled sounds, creating an intimate world where only they existed. Sophia's hand brushed his as they walked, and on the 3rd accidental touch, he took her fingers in his, heart hammering when she didn't pull away. "Tell me about your work," she said. "What's it like working the docks?" Sam chose his words carefully, drawing from the summers he'd spent as a boy before his father decided manual labor was beneath a rookin. "It's honest. Your body aches at the end of the day, but it's a good ache, like you've earned your tiredness." He pointed to a massive cargo ship. "See that one? The Persistent Dream. She comes in from Nova Scotia every 2 weeks. The crew always brings these Canadian butter cookies that they share with whoever's working the dock." All true. He just didn't mention that the ship was his, named after his mother's favorite poem. "Do you ever want more?" Sophia asked, then caught herself. "I don't mean that the way it sounded. I know what you meant." He squeezed her hand gently. "Sometimes I think about it. But more of what? Money doesn't make people happy. I've seen rich folks plenty miserable on their yachts." She laughed, spoken like someone who's never had to choose between groceries and heating oil. The guilt twisted sharper. He'd never faced that choice, never would. His monthly interest alone could heat every home in Belhaven through 10 winters. They reached the string of restaurants along the waterfront. Incident number 1, he thought grimly. This was where he showed her his supposed poverty. The lighthouse restaurant sat pretty on the pier, all white tablecloths visible through fog-kissed windows. "Have you ever eaten there?" Sophia asked, a note of wistfulness in her voice. "Once," Sam lied. He'd been there last week, actually, closing a $1 million deal over lobster thermidor. "For my buddy's wedding. Spent a month's wages on 1 meal. Good food, but..." He shrugged. "I know a better place." He watched her face carefully, waiting for disappointment. Instead, she smiled. "Lead the way." He brought her to a bench near the fish market, pulled out a thermos of coffee and sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, prepared by his housekeeper Stella, though he'd claim he'd made them himself, if asked. The fog had lifted slightly, revealing the harbour in all its working-class glory, rust-streaked boats, nets being mended, men calling to each other in the universal language of labour. "This is perfect," Sophia said, and meant it. She bit into her sandwich, fresh bread, good cheese, turkey with cranberry sauce, and made a sound of appreciation that sent heat through Sam's body. "Did you make these?" "Family recipe," he said, which was technically true. Stella had been with his family for 20 years. They ate in comfortable silence, watching the harbour's ballet of boats and birds, A seal popped its head up near the pier, studied them with liquid eyes, then disappeared beneath the grey water. "I love that you brought me here," Sophia said suddenly. "Most men would try to impress with fancy restaurants, expensive wine, but this—" She gestured to the harbour, the fog, the simple meal. "This is real. You're showing me what you love, not what you think I want to see." The irony was so sharp it could cut glass. Sam set down his sandwich, appetite gone. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." "No." She pressed a finger to his lips, and the touch short-circuited his brain. "Not yet. I'm enjoying the mystery of you, Sam, whoever you are. Don't solve yourself for me too quickly." She was giving him an out, though she didn't know it. Sam caught her finger, pressed a kiss to its tip that made her breath catch. "Tell me about your dream," he said instead. "If money was no object, what would you do?" Her eyes went distant, seeing something beyond the fog. "I'd open a music school, not just for kids who can afford lessons, but for everyone. There's so much talent in this town that never gets nurtured because piano teachers charge $20 an hour and some families are choosing between music and milk." "What would you call it?" "Haven House of Music." She smiled shyly. "Cheesy, I know, but it's perfect." He was already mentally calculating. There was that empty building on Meridian Street, good bones, decent acoustics. He could buy it through a shell company, make it available at below market rent. That was exactly the kind of manipulation he was trying to avoid. "What about you?" she asked. "If you could do anything." "I'd sail away," he said without thinking. "Just take a boat and disappear into the blue. No expectations, no obligations, just wind and water and freedom." "Why don't you?" "Because I have 300 employees depending on me," he thought. "Because I have contracts and obligations and a fortune that demands constant attention." "Maybe someday," he said instead. The fog was lifting more now, sun breaking through in golden shafts that turned the water into hammered metal. Sophia shivered, and Sam draped his jacket around her shoulders without thinking. The gesture brought them close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, the tiny scar above her left eyebrow. "How'd you get that?" He traced the air above the scar, not quite touching. "Fell off my bike when I was 7. My brother Gabriel dared me to ride down Harbour Hill with no hands." "And you did it?" "Of course. I've never been good at backing down from dares." She looked at him through her lashes. "It's a character flaw. Or a strength." They were so close now he could feel her breath on his face. The harbour, the fog, the world itself seemed to hold its breath. "Sam," she whispered, but a foghorn blasted, making them both jump and laugh. The moment broke but didn't shatter. It reformed into something softer, more patient. They walked more, Sam showing her his harbour, the spot where he'd caught his first fish, true. The pier where he'd had his first kiss, also true. The warehouse where he worked, a lie by omission. He owned it, but had worked there summers as a boy. As the afternoon aged into evening, they ended up at the furthest point of the public pier. The fog had cleared entirely now, leaving a sunset that painted everything gold and rose. "I should get you home," Sam said reluctantly. "I suppose you should." Neither moved. "Sam?" Sophia turned to face him fully. "I don't care that you can't afford fancy restaurants. I don't care that your jacket has patches or that your truck," she'd seen it in the parking lot, "looks like it's held together by rust and prayer. I care that you see beauty in fog. I care that you know the names of boats. I care that you kiss fingers like they're precious and share sandwiches like they're sacrament." She raised up on her toes, pressed a kiss to his cheek that burned like a brand. "Whatever you're not telling me, and I know there's something, just make sure it's not something that changes who you are when you're with me, because I'm starting to really like who that is." Chapter 3. The broken truck thunder rolled across Bellhaven like God clearing his throat, and Sam gripped the steering wheel of Hudson's ancient truck harder, praying the engine wouldn't actually die before he could fake its death convincingly. 3 weeks had passed since the harbor walk. 3 weeks of stolen afternoons and evening walks, of Sophia's laughter becoming his favorite sound and her touch becoming his necessary drug. 3 weeks of lies by omission that sat in his stomach like stones. "You sure you don't want to take my car?" Sophia had offered when he'd picked her up. She stood in her doorway wearing a yellow sundress that made his mouth go dry, seemingly unaware that storm clouds were gathering like an omen. The dress had tiny sunflowers printed along the hem, and she'd paired it with white canvas shoes that had seen better days, but somehow made her look more beautiful for their imperfection. "This old girl's got life in her yet," Sam had said, patting the truck's dashboard. The dashboard responded by producing an ominous rattling sound that was, unfortunately, entirely genuine. "That doesn't sound like life," Sophia had laughed, climbing in anyway. "That sounds like a death rattle." "You wound me and my truck simultaneously," Sam had replied, but he was grinning. This was what Sophia did. She made everything lighter, even his guilt. Now, driving along the coastal road toward the art fair in the next town, Sam watched Sophia from the corner of his eye. She had her window down despite the approaching storm, one hand playing with the wind, humming something that might have been Stevie Wonder or might have been her own creation. The sight of her, comfortable in his supposed poverty, radiant in a dying truck, made his chest ache with something between love and guilt. "You're staring," she said without looking at him. "I'm driving. You're staring while driving. That's probably illegal. Only if I crash. Well, given this truck's condition, that seems likely regardless." The engine coughed as if in agreement, then wheezed, then, right on cue, though Sam hadn't planned it, died completely. "Oh no," Sophia said as Sam guided the truck to the shoulder. "Is it—" "Dead as disco," Sam confirmed, turning the key to produce nothing but clicks. This part wasn't acting. Hudson's truck had genuinely given up. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. I wanted today to be perfect. And now—" "Stop." She placed her hand on his arm, and he could feel the warmth through his shirt. "Adventures are never perfect. That's what makes them adventures. Besides," she looked at the sky through the windshield, "I think we're about to have a bigger problem than a dead truck." The first fat raindrops hit the windshield. Within seconds, it was a deluge, rain hammering the truck's roof like urgent messages from above. "There's an old lighthouse about a quarter-mile up," Sam said, remembering. "It's abandoned but solid. We could wait out the storm there." Sophia's eyes lit up with mischief. "A mysterious lighthouse in a storm? Are you trying to seduce me, Sam, whoever you are? Is it working?" She grinned. "Race you." Before he could protest, she was out of the truck, shrieking with laughter as the rain instantly soaked her. Sam sat frozen for a moment, watching her spin in the rain, her sundress plastered to her skin, her face turned up to the sky like she was receiving a blessing. "Come on, dock worker," she called, "or are you afraid of a little water?" He ran after her, catching up just as she reached the lighthouse. The door was warped, but unlocked. He made a mental note to have someone secure it. The lighthouse was his property after all, and they tumbled inside, breathless and dripping. The interior was dusty but dry, with a spiral staircase leading up to the lamp room. Weak grey light filtered through salt-hazed windows. Sophia wrung out her hair, creating a small puddle on the wooden floor, and Sam couldn't look away from the way the wet fabric of her dress clung to her curves. "Stop looking at me like that," she said, but her voice was warm, teasing. "Like what? Like you want to devour me?" "Maybe I do." The words hung between them, charged as the lightning that flickered outside. Sophia's breath caught, and for a moment Sam thought she might close the distance between them. Then she shivered, genuinely cold, and Sam shrugged off his jacket, wet but warm, and wrapped it around her. "Always the gentleman," she murmured, pulling the jacket tight. It smelled like him, salt and soap and something uniquely Sam. "Let's go up," she suggested. "I've never been in a lighthouse before." They climbed the spiral stairs, their footsteps echoing metallically. Halfway up, Sophia stopped, turned to look back at him. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about lighthouses, said they were where earth kissed heaven, where lost souls found direction. What do you think?" "I think," she said slowly, "that sometimes we're all ships in storms, looking for light to guide us home." They continued climbing, and at the top, the lamp room was all windows and dust motes, with an old keeper's chair and a view that, on clear days, would stretch for miles. Today, they could barely see 50 feet through the rain. "It's like being inside a cloud," Sophia said wonderingly. She sat in the keeper's chair, its leather cracked but still solid, and pulled Sam down to sit on the floor beside her, his head against her knee. Without thinking, she began running her fingers through his damp hair. "You have paint under your fingernails," she observed. Sam tensed. The paint was from touching up his yacht that morning, not from any dock work. "Old project," he said vaguely. "Tell me a secret," she said suddenly. "Something nobody else knows." Sam closed his eyes, savoring her touch. He could tell her the biggest secret. "I'm rich. I own this lighthouse. I've been lying since we met." Instead, he chose a different truth. "I haven't felt real in years," he said quietly, "until you. With you I feel like I'm finally who I'm supposed to be." Her fingers stilled in his hair. "Sam, my mother used to say that people wear masks so long they forget their real faces underneath. I've been wearing mine so long that when I'm with you, when I can just be, it feels like breathing after being underwater. My turn. Tell me a secret." She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Thunder rumbled outside, and the rain intensified, creating a curtain of white noise around them. Then, "I'm scared. Of this, of us. My last relationship. He was wealthy, not incredibly so, but comfortable. A surgeon at the hospital, David Ashford, you might have heard of him." Sam had. David had actually tried to get Sam to invest in some medical startup. He'd seemed like an ass. He said he loved me, but what he loved was having a beautiful black woman on his arm at hospital galas. I was an accessory, proof of how progressive he was. He used to introduce me as Sophia. She's actually quite accomplished for... And then he'd trail off, but everyone knew what he meant. When I finally left, he said I should be grateful he'd chosen me, that I'd never find another man of his caliber willing to overlook my background. Sam turned, rising to his knees so he could look her in the eyes. Rain lashed the windows behind her, creating a symphony of percussion. "He was a fool and a racist and didn't deserve to breathe the same air as you. I know that now. But it made me promise myself, no more rich men. No more being someone's exotic experiment or diversity trophy. I want someone who sees me, not what I represent. Someone who values what I am, not what I look like on their arm." The guilt was going to kill him. Sam cupped her face in his hands, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. "You're not a symbol or a statement or a trophy. You're Sophia. You're brilliant and kind and talented. You're the woman who plays Chopin like she's channeling heaven, and who laughs at seagulls and who runs in the rain like a pagan goddess. You're the woman who makes me want to be better than I am. You're everything." "Sam," she whispered, and her voice broke on his name. She kissed him then, sudden and fierce, and Sam's world narrowed to the points where they touched, lips, hands, hearts. She tasted like rain and possibility, and he kissed her back with 3 weeks of pent-up longing. Her hands tangled in his wet hair, and he pulled her from the chair onto his lap, needing her closer, needing to erase any distance between them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm falling for you, Sam. Against all my better judgment, against every promise I made myself, I'm falling hard. Catch me then, he whispered against her lips, because I've already fallen. I fell the moment you walked into that diner. They stayed in the lighthouse for 2 hours, talking and kissing and discovering each other in ways that had nothing to do with clothes coming off and everything to do with souls opening up. Sophia told him about her father's death when she was 15, how music had saved her from drowning in grief, how she'd played at his funeral. Amazing grace, turning into a jazz improvisation that had made the whole church weep and laugh simultaneously. Sam told her about the pressure he felt at work, carefully avoiding specifics, the weight of expectations he carried. Sometimes I feel like I'm playing a role written by someone else. Like I'm supposed to want things I don't want, be someone I'm not. What do you want? Sophia asked, her fingers tracing patterns on his jaw. This, he said simply. You. Simplicity. Truth. The last word burned his tongue. Sometimes I dream about running away, he admitted. Just disappearing into somewhere where nobody knows me, where I can just be. Where would you go? Wherever you are, he said without thinking, then froze. Too much, too soon. But Sophia just smiled, soft and wondering. Careful, Sam. I might hold you to that. The storm began to ease, rain softening from assault to caress. They stayed entwined on the floor of the lamp room, Sophia in Sam's lap, his arms around her, her head on his shoulder. Neither wanted to move, to break this spell the storm had woven around them. We should probably check on the truck, Sophia finally said, though she made no move to leave his embrace. Probably, Sam agreed, tightening his arms around her. It might start now. It might. We're going to miss the art fair. I'm oddly okay with that. She laughed, the sound vibrating through his chest. Me too. Eventually, reluctantly, they descended the lighthouse stairs. At the door, Sophia paused, looked back at the interior. This place feels special now. Like it's ours. It is, Sam said, meaning it more literally than she could know. The storm had passed as suddenly as it had come, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming. Every surface reflected light, puddles like mirrors, leaves like jewels. They made their way back to the truck, their clothes still damp, hair wild, looking thoroughly disheveled. The truck, miraculously, started on the third try. Hudson had mentioned it often did that, played dead then resurrected itself. It's like magic, Sophia laughed as the engine rumbled to life. Your magic, Sam said, then immediately cringed. That was terrible. I'm sorry. It was terrible, she agreed, grinning. But also sweet. You're forgiven. As Sam drove Sophia home, she kept her hand on his thigh, a casual intimacy that made his heart race. She'd turned on the radio, and Otis Redding was singing about the dock of the bay, which made her laugh and say, "Our song." He parked in front of her building, a modest complex where she rented a one-bedroom, and walked her to her door. The evening sun was breaking through the remaining clouds, painting everything gold. Thank you, she said, for the most perfect imperfect date. Even with the broken truck and the storm, especially with those. Anyone can plan a perfect date with unlimited money. It takes someone special to turn disaster into magic. She kissed him goodbye, soft and lingering, her hands framing his face. I meant what I said in the lighthouse. I'm falling for you. It terrifies me, but it also feels inevitable, like you were always supposed to happen to me. Sophia, don't say anything, just be who you are. That's all I need. She disappeared inside, leaving Sam standing on her doorstep with the weight of her trust crushing his chest. He sat in the truck for a long moment, head against the steering wheel, her words echoing, "Be who you are." But who was he, the millionaire, the dock worker, the liar, the man desperately in love with a woman who would hate him if she knew the truth. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he would tell her everything. He'd explain about the testing, the fear of gold diggers, the desperate need to be loved for himself. She'd understand. She had to. But tomorrow came and went, and the words stuck in his throat. Because every day that passed, Sophia fell more in love with Sam, the dock worker, and Sam, the millionaire, became more terrified of losing her. The lighthouse stood empty on the coast, keeping its witness to their confessions, their kisses, their promises. And if lighthouses could speak, this one would have warned them. Storms always return, and not all ships survive the rocks of deception. Chapter 4. The Birthday Gift. October arrived in Belhaven wearing gold and crimson, painting the town in the colors of Sophia's laughter. Sam stood in the antique shop on Pemberton Street, staring at the 1890s Steinway grand piano that seemed to glow in the afternoon light. It was perfect, the exact model Sophia had mentioned her grandmother once owned, the one she'd learned on as a child before it was sold to pay for her grandfather's cancer treatment. "She's a beauty," the shop owner, Mr. Chen, said quietly. "Been here 2 years. Nobody in town can afford her, but I can't bear to ship her elsewhere. Instruments like this should stay close to the sea. The salt air gives them soul." Sam ran his fingers over the keys, careful not to make a sound. He could buy it without blinking. Could have it delivered to Sophia's apartment with a big red bow. Could change her life with a single check. Instead, he walked out empty-handed, the weight of what he couldn't give her heavier than any piano. Sophia's birthday was tomorrow, October 15th. She'd mentioned it only in passing, embarrassed by the fuss people made over birthdays, but her friend Penelope had let slip that it was her 30th, a milestone she was both excited and anxious about. "What do you give a woman who makes music from moonlight?" Sam had asked Hudson that morning, helping the older man repair a fence on the property Sam supposedly didn't own. Hudson, 70 years old and sharp as winter wind, had given him a long look. "You give her the truth, boy. That's worth more than any gift." But Sam was in too deep now. The truth would ruin everything. So instead, he'd spent the morning in his greenhouse, which Hudson maintained for the absent owner, carefully pressing flowers between sheets of parchment, creating a bookmark with Queen Anne's lace and tiny coastal roses. It was simple, almost embarrassingly so for a woman turning 30, but it was all Sam the dock worker could afford. The next evening, Sam arrived at Sophia's apartment with his pathetic gift wrapped in brown paper. He'd decorated himself with sketches of musical notes. She answered the door in a deep purple dress that made her skin glow, and Sam forgot how to breathe. "You look—" "There aren't words," he managed. She smiled, shy and pleased. "Penelope insisted on taking me shopping. This cost more than I usually spend on groceries in a month, but—" She twirled, the skirt flaring. "Sometimes a woman needs to feel beautiful." "You're always beautiful. The dress is just agreeing with what already exists." She kissed him, soft and sweet, tasting of the wine she'd been sharing with Penelope, who appeared behind her with knowing eyes. "The dock worker," Penelope said, and something in her tone made Sam nervous. She worked at the country club, had probably seen him there dozens of times. "Sophia talks about you constantly. All terrible things, I'm sure." "Quite the opposite." Penelope's stare was penetrating. "She says you're the most genuine man she's ever met, that you don't pretend to be anything you're not." The words were a knife between his ribs, but Sam smiled through it. "I try to be myself." "We should go," Sophia intervened, sensing tension. "Gabriel's already at the restaurant, and you know how he gets when he's kept waiting." The restaurant was modest. Rosalie's, a family place where birthdays meant free cake and the whole staff singing off-key. Sam had wanted to take her somewhere nicer, but caught himself before suggesting it. Dock workers didn't frequent restaurants with wine lists and tablecloths. Gabriel was indeed waiting, and his expression when he saw Sam was carefully neutral. Sophia's brother was protective, had been since their father died, and he'd made it clear he was withholding judgment on Sam. "The dock worker," he said, echoing Penelope's greeting but with less edge. "The suspicious brother," Sam replied, and was rewarded with Gabriel's surprised laugh. Dinner was boisterous, friends dropping by the table to wish Sophia well. She held court like a queen, gracious and warm, but her hand found Sam's under the table and stayed there, thumb tracing circles on his palm. When the cake came, chocolate with buttercream roses, the whole restaurant sang. Sophia hid her face against Sam's shoulder, embarrassed and delighted in equal measure. In that moment, with her warmth against him and her joy filling the air, Sam knew with terrible certainty that he loved her completely. "Make a wish," Penelope commanded as Sophia faced the candles. Sophia closed her eyes, and Sam watched her face in the candlelight, the way her lashes cast shadows on her cheeks, the slight smile playing at her lips. When she opened her eyes and blew out the candles, her gaze found his immediately, and he knew, somehow, that her wish had been about them. Later, after dinner, they walked along the harbour. October had turned cold, and Sophia wore Sam's jacket over her dress. They found a bench, their bench now, the one where they'd shared sandwiches that first day, and Sam pulled out his pathetic wrapped gift. "It's not much," he started, but Sophia pressed her finger to his lips. "If it's from you, it's everything." She unwrapped it slowly, carefully, as if the brown paper itself was precious. When she saw the bookmark, the pressed flowers arranged in a pattern that suggested musical notes, sealed between thin glass, her eyes filled with tears. "Sam, did you make this? I know it's not. It's perfect." She held it up to the streetlight, watching the way the light passed through the delicate petals. "No one's ever made me anything before, not since I was little, and Gabriel would draw me birthday cards. You deserve more. You deserve that Steinway at Chen's. You deserve—" "Stop!" This time her kiss silenced him. "I don't want what I deserve. I want what's real. This," she held up the bookmark, "is real. You took time. You thought about what would matter to me. That's worth more than any expensive gift." They sat in comfortable silence, Sophia's head on his shoulder, watching the harbour lights dance on the water. Then she said, "My grandmother had a saying, 'Love isn't proved by what you can afford to give, but by what you can't afford not to give.' This bookmark, you gave me your time, your creativity, your thoughtfulness. Those aren't things you can buy." Sam's throat was too tight to speak. How could he tell her now? How could he admit that he could buy her a dozen Steinways without noticing the expense, that the bookmark was a lie too, just a different kind? "There's a talent show," Sophia said suddenly, "at the community centre next month. They want me to play, but I thought, would you sing with me? I know you said you don't perform, but—" "Yes," Sam said without thinking. He'd do anything she asked, even though the thought of being on stage terrified him. Someone would recognize him, surely, but the way her face lit up was worth any risk. "Really? You'll do it? With you?" "I'd do anything." She kissed him then, deeper than before, with heat that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with want. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia's eyes were dark with desire. "Take me home," she whispered. Sam's heart hammered. "Sophia, not for that. Not yet. I want to be alone with you, away from everyone else. Just us." He drove her home in Hudson's truck, which had developed a new rattle that sounded expensive. Sophia didn't care, singing along to the radio, her hand on his thigh, her joy infectious. At her apartment, she made coffee while Sam looked at her photos, Sophia at various ages, always at a piano, always smiling. There was one of her whole family, parents and Gabriel, from before her father died. They looked so happy, so complete. That was 2 weeks before the accident, Sophia said, appearing beside him with 2 mugs. I'm grateful we have it. Gabriel wanted to put all the photos away after, but I needed to see Dad's face, needed to remember that we'd been happy. Tell me about him. They settled on her couch, Sophia curled against Sam's side, and she talked about her father, a mailman who sang Motown while he walked his route, who taught her to find music in everything from rainfall to footsteps. He would have liked you, she said. He always said the measure of a man wasn't his wallet but his willingness to show up. Another knife of guilt. Sam was showing up, yes, but as someone he wasn't. Sophia, he started. There's something I need. But she was kissing him again, and the words dissolved on his tongue. They kissed until they were both trembling with want and restraint, until Sophia pulled back with visible effort. If you don't leave now, I'm going to ask you to stay, she said breathlessly. Sam stood, though every cell in his body protested. Happy birthday, Sophia. Best one yet, she replied, clutching the bookmark like a talisman. As Sam drove home to his empty mansion, he thought about Hudson's words about truth being the best gift. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow, he would tell her everything. But tomorrow came with its own excuses, its own fears, its own desperate need to preserve the perfect fiction they'd built together. And the bookmark sat on Sophia's nightstand, catching morning light through pressed flowers, a beautiful lie among so many others. Chapter 5. The Family Dinner. Aurora. Benson's house smelled like heaven was hosting Sunday dinner, and Sam stood on the front porch holding a mason jar of preserves like it was the Holy Grail. Stop fidgeting, Sophia said, squeezing his hand. It's just dinner with my family. Just dinner. Just meeting the mother of the woman he loved. Just sitting across from Gabriel, who'd been suspicious since day one, just maintaining his facade in a house that reminded him painfully of the family dinners he'd lost when his mother died. The preserves, Stella's famous apple butter, felt pathetic in his hands. He could have brought wine worth more than most people's cars, could have had a 5-course meal catered. Instead, he stood there with a mason jar and sweaty palms, playing a part that felt less like protection and more like betrayal with each passing day. The door opened before Sophia could knock. Aurora Benson was a preview of Sophia in 25 years. The same warm eyes, the same regal bearing, the same smile that made you feel like you were coming home. "You must be Sam," she said, and pulled him into a hug before he could respond. She smelled like cinnamon and butter, like mothers were supposed to smell. "Sophia hasn't stopped talking about you for weeks." "Mom," Sophia protested, but she was smiling. "I brought this." Sam offered the preserves awkwardly. "It's not much, but—" "Homemade?" Aurora examined the jar with interest. "Don't tell me a dock worker knows his way around a kitchen too?" "Family recipe," Sam said, the half-truth burning his tongue. "My aunt taught me." Stella would laugh at being called his aunt, but she'd taught him more about family than most of his blood relatives. The house was warm and lived in, photos covering every surface, jazz playing softly from an old stereo. Nothing matched. The couch was floral, the armchair was plaid, the curtains were striped. But somehow it all worked, creating a harmony that reminded Sam of Sophia's music. Gabriel emerged from the kitchen, drying his hands on a dish rag. His expression was carefully neutral, but his handshake was firm. "Sam, good to see you again." "You too. Need help in the kitchen?" Gabriel's eyebrows rose. "You cook." "I'm better at eating than cooking, but I can follow directions." That earned him a small smile. "Come on then. Mom'll have you peeling potatoes before you can blink." The kitchen was controlled chaos. Aurora conducted the meal preparation like a symphony, assigning tasks with the efficiency of someone who'd raised 2 children alone. Sam found himself beside Gabriel, peeling potatoes, while Sophia and her mother worked on the greens. "So," Gabriel said quietly, "Sophia says you work the docks." That's right. Funny, my buddy Theodore works down there. Says he's never seen you. Sam's hand stilled on the potato peeler. It's a big operation. Lots of shifts. Gabriel's tone was neutral, but his eyes were sharp. You know, you look familiar. Can't place it, but I swear I've seen you somewhere before. I have one of those faces, Sam said, forcing his voice to stay level. Maybe. Gabriel was quiet for a moment, then, she's been hurt before. The last guy, that surgeon, he did a number on her. Treated her like an accessory, not a person. She told me. Did she tell you she didn't eat for a week after? That she stopped playing piano for a month? That she nearly moved away from Bellhaven entirely? Sam's hands clenched around the peeler. No. She wouldn't. Sophia shows her strength, not her scars. But I'm her brother. I see both. Gabriel turned to face Sam directly. I don't care if you're rich or poor, black or white, educated or not, but if you're lying to her about something fundamental, if you're playing some kind of game... Gabriel, Sophia appeared in the doorway. Are you threatening my boyfriend? Just talking, Gabriel said mildly, man to man. Sophia's eyes narrowed, but Aurora called everyone to the table before she could interrogate further. Dinner was a revelation. The food, roast chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, was incredible, but it was the conversation that enchanted Sam. The Bensons talked over each other, laughed at inside jokes, argued about everything from politics to the proper way to season greens. It was chaotic and warm, and everything family should be. Tell us about your people, Sam, Aurora said, passing him more cornbread. Sophia says you don't talk much about family. The table went quiet, everyone looking at him with interest rather than suspicion. Not much to tell, Sam said carefully. My mother died when I was 15. Cancer. My father ... He paused, choosing his words. We don't speak. He wanted me to be something I'm not. All true, though his father's vision had involved taking over the family empire, not working the docks. Aurora reached across the table to squeeze his hand. I'm sorry about your mother. Losing a parent young changes you. It does, Sophia agreed softly, her hand finding his under the table. But you know, Aurora continued, family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who stay, who see you for who you really are. The words were meant as comfort, but they twisted in Sam's chest like a blade. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Sophia played piano, an old upright that was slightly out of tune, but perfect in its imperfection. She played Motown for her father's memory, jazz for her mother's joy, classical for her own soul. Sam watched her, lost in the music and the woman creating it. You should sing something, Aurora suggested. Sophia says you have a beautiful voice. I don't... Please. Sophia looked at him from the piano bench. Just one song? He couldn't refuse her anything. Sam joined her at the piano, and she began playing something slow and sweet. He sang, an old folk song his mother had loved, and watched Sophia's face transform with wonder. You've been holding out on us, Gabriel said when the song ended. That's a trained voice. Church choir as a kid, Sam lied. It had actually been private lessons from a Broadway vocal coach, preparation for the public speaking his father had insisted on. As the evening wound down, Aurora pulled Sam aside while Sophia helped Gabriel with dishes. I want to thank you, she said quietly. For what? For bringing my daughter back to life. She was just existing after that fool doctor. But since you... Aurora smiled. She plays happy music again. She laughs from her belly, not just her throat. She's Sophia again. She saved me too, Sam said, and meant it. I was lost before her. Aurora studied his face. You're carrying something heavy. I can see it in your eyes. Whatever it is, don't let it poison what you have with her. Some things are worth more than pride or fear or whatever's keeping you silent. Before Sam could respond, Sophia appeared. Ready to go? Outside, the October night was crisp and clear. They stood by Hudson's truck, Sophia wrapped in Sam's arms. "Thank you," she said against his chest, "for tonight, for being wonderful with my family." "They're easy to be wonderful with." She pulled back to look at him. "Gabriel wasn't giving you a hard time, was he?" "He's protective. I respect that. I'd be the same if I had a sister like you." "Like me, how?" "Brilliant, beautiful, talented, worth protecting." She kissed him, soft and deep. "I don't need protecting, Sam. I just need honesty. Promise me, whatever happens, you'll always be honest with me." The lie stuck in his throat like glass. "Sophia, promise me." "I promise," he whispered. Another lie added to the pile. She smiled, trusting and pure, and Sam knew he was damned. Not by the lies he'd told, but by the truth he couldn't speak. As he drove home to his mansion, Sam thought about Aurora's words about family being the people who see you for who you really are. The problem was, Sophia had never seen the real him. She'd seen Sam the dock worker, Sam the simple man, Sam the lie. And with each passing day, he became more terrified that when she finally saw Sam Rukin, millionaire, liar, coward, she wouldn't see anyone worth loving at all. Chapter 6. The Close Call. Miles Whitmore arrived in Bellhaven like a hurricane in a three-piece suit, and Sam's carefully constructed world began to crack at the foundations. "What do you mean you can't meet today?" Miles's voice crackled through the phone with barely contained frustration. "The Japanese buyers are here for 48 hours, Sam. We need you at the country club for lunch." Sam gripped his phone tighter, watching through the window as Sophia arranged books in the library where she worked. He'd promised to help her move some donated pianos to the community center today, a promise made by Sam the dock worker, not Sam the CEO. "Handle it yourself, Miles. You know my terms as well as I do." "Your terms?" "Sam, this is a $50 million deal. You can't seriously prioritize whatever." "I said handle it." Sam ended the call, but the damage was done. Miles was in town, and Miles had all the subtlety of a brass band. "Everything okay?" Sophia appeared beside him, concern creasing her brow. "You look stressed." "Work stuff," Sam said vaguely. "Someone's making demands they shouldn't." She kissed his cheek. "Well, tell them you're taken today. These pianos won't move themselves." They spent the morning at the community center, Sam genuinely straining alongside other volunteers to move 3 donated uprights into the makeshift music room. Sophia glowed with purpose, directing the operation with the intensity of a general and the joy of a child on Christmas morning. "This is it," she said, running her hands over one of the pianos. "The beginning of Haven House. Maybe not the full dream yet, but a start." Sam watched her test each piano, making notes about what needed tuning, what needed repair. He could have hired a team of professionals to restore them all in a day. Instead, he held his tongue and held her toolbox while she did preliminary adjustments herself. "Mr. Sam." He turned to find Lucy, Sophia's 7-year-old student, racing toward them with the uncontained energy of childhood. "Lucy," Sophia laughed as the girl launched herself at her teacher. "What are you doing here?" "Mama's volunteering in the kitchen. Can I help with the pianos? Please?" "Of course," Sophia said. "Sam, this is my star student. Lucy, this is my friend, Sam." "Boyfriend," Lucy corrected matter-of-factly. "You said boyfriend last week. I heard you." Sophia blushed while Sam laughed. "Boyfriend, then," he agreed, earning a brilliant smile from Sophia. They were walking to lunch, Lucy chattering between them about everything and nothing, when disaster struck. The country club was 3 blocks from the community center, and Miles Whitmore stood outside it, impossible to miss with his silver hair and obvious wealth. "Sam?" Miles called out, starting toward them. "Sam Rukin!" Sam's blood turned to ice. He could pretend not to hear, but Miles was already jogging over, his face lit with relief. "There you are. I've been calling—" Miles stopped short, finally noticing Sophia and Lucy. His eyes widened as he took in Sam's appearance. Worn jeans, paint-stained t-shirt from moving pianos, nothing like the man who usually commanded boardrooms. "I think you have me confused with someone else," Sam said evenly. Miles blinked, opened his mouth, closed it. Sam could see the moment understanding dawned. Not full understanding, but enough. "My apologies," Miles said slowly. "You look remarkably like someone I know. Sorry to bother you." He walked away, but not before giving Sam a look that promised future conversation. "That was weird," Sophia said. "Though you do have one of those faces." Gabriel said the same thing. "Common face," Sam agreed, his heart still racing. "Want to get those sandwiches?" But the close calls weren't done. At the deli, Sam nearly walked straight into Eleanor Hartwell, whose charity foundation he'd donated millions to over the years. She started to greet him, but he turned sharply, pretending to study the menu board with intensity. "You okay?" Sophia asked. "You seem jumpy." "Too much coffee," he lied. They ate in the park, Lucy between them making dandelion chains. It should have been perfect. Autumn sun, the woman he loved, the music of a child's laughter. But Sam could feel the walls closing in. Miles would have questions. Eleanor would mention seeing him. The fiction was becoming too hard to maintain. "I have to tell you something," he said suddenly. Sophia looked up from the dandelion crown she was making for Lucy. "That sounds ominous." "It's about Miss Sophia, Mr. Sam. Look." Lucy had climbed onto the fountain edge, arms spread wide for balance. "Lucy, careful." Sophia rushed to spot her, and the moment was lost. They spent the afternoon at the harbour, Lucy collecting shells while Sam and Sophia walked hand in hand. Everything should have been perfect, but Sam could feel time running out like sand through his fingers. As evening approached, they returned Lucy to her mother and walked back toward the library where Sophia had left her car. That's when Sam saw him. Miles again, this time with 2 Japanese executives, all heading toward the harbour restaurant. "I need to—" Sam gestured vaguely toward the public restroom. "I'll catch up." He ducked away, but not before one of the executives noticed him. Sam saw recognition flicker across the man's face. They'd met at a conference in Tokyo last year. When he returned, Sophia was chatting with Penelope, who'd appeared from nowhere with that knowing look she'd been wearing more frequently. "Sam," Penelope said, her tone loaded with meaning. "How's the dock work treating you?" "Can't complain." "I bet you can't." She turned to Sophia. "I need to borrow you tomorrow. Wedding planning emergency." "Whose wedding?" Sophia asked. "Mine, hopefully, someday. But I need to know which venues are worth it. The country club's having an open house. Very exclusive usually, but tomorrow anyone can tour." "I don't really do country clubs," Sophia said. "Come on," Penelope pressed. "Free champagne, tiny foods on sticks. Besides, you might be surprised who you see there." Her eyes flicked to Sam, and he knew, she knew. Somehow, Penelope had figured it out. "Maybe," Sophia said. "Sam, want to come?" "I have to work," he said quickly. "The boats, big shipment." "On Sunday? Shipping never sleeps." Sophia looked disappointed but didn't push. They said goodbye at her car, and she kissed him with a tenderness that felt like goodbye, though she couldn't know it might be. "I love you," she said against his lips. "Whatever's bothering you, whatever you're worried about, we can face it together. You know that, right?" "I know," he whispered, hating himself for the lie. That night, Sam sat in his study, writing and discarding letter after letter. How did you tell someone that everything they knew about you was a lie? How did you explain that you'd fallen in love while wearing a mask, and now you couldn't take it off without losing everything? Miles called. Want to explain what that was about today? It's complicated. Sam, you can't keep living two lives. It's going to explode, and when it does... I know. The Japanese team recognized you, by the way. I told them you have an identical twin who's a dock worker. They found it amusing. Thanks. Don't thank me. Fix this. That woman, Sophia, she deserves the truth. Sam knew Miles was right. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow at the country club, if she showed up, he'd tell her everything. Better she hear it from him than discover it herself. But tomorrow had its own plans, and the truth had a way of revealing itself in the worst possible way, at the worst possible time. The letter he finally wrote sat on his desk, unsigned. My dearest Sophia, I am not who you think I am, but everything I feel for you is more real than anything I've ever known. Please forgive me for the lie that brought us together, and please believe that the love that grew from it is the only truth that matters. Forever yours, the man you're still teaching to be himself. He sealed it in an envelope, wrote her name on the front, and left it on his desk. Tomorrow, he'd either give it to her or tell her in person. Tomorrow, everything would change. Chapter 7. The Revelation. The Belhaven Harvest Festival arrived dressed in gold and crimson, with the salt-sweet smell of caramel apples and the distant music of a fiddle band. Sam stood at their usual meeting spot near the harbor entrance, watching families stream past with children clutching cotton candy and couples holding hands. He'd practiced his confession 100 times. Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. I'm not who you think I am, but I am who I want to be when I'm with you. The words felt hollow, insufficient for the magnitude of his deception. His hands shook slightly as he checked his watch. She was 5 minutes late, unusual for her. Maybe she sensed something. Maybe she already knew. You look like you're facing execution. He spun to find Sophia approaching, and his breath caught as it always did. She wore a rust-colored sweater that made her skin glow, her hair crowned with a flower wreath she'd probably bought from one of the vendors. She looked like autumn itself come to life. But there was something in her eyes, a questioning, an uncertainty he hadn't seen before. You're beautiful, he said, because it was true, and because the words he needed to say were choking him. She kissed him, tasting of apple cider and cinnamon, but pulled back sooner than usual. You've been distant all week. Are we okay? We're... The lie stuck in his throat. Sophia, there's something... Later, she said, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Come on, melancholy man. Let's find some joy. We can talk about whatever's bothering you after. They wandered through the festival, hand in hand, but the usual magic felt forced. Sophia insisted on trying every sample, playing every carnival game, dancing to every street musician, but Sam could feel her watching him, sensing the weight he carried. When a little girl ran past them chasing bubbles, Sophia's face lit up with genuine joy, and Sam felt his heart break preemptively. This might be their last perfect moment. Remember when we met Lucy here last year? Sophia said suddenly. She was so shy then. Now she performs in front of the whole class. You changed her life, Sam said. Music changed her life. I just introduced them. She paused at a booth selling handmade jewelry, fingering a simple silver bracelet. Isn't it strange how the smallest gestures can alter everything? The irony wasn't lost on him. You're quiet, she observed, as they shared a funnel cake, powdered sugar dusting her nose. More than usual, I mean. Sam, whatever it is, you can tell me. That's what we do, right? Tell each other everything. Sophia, Sam. Penelope appeared through the crowd like a herald of doom, and she wasn't alone. With her was a man Sam recognized with sinking dread, James Harrison from the Belhaven Gazette, who'd interviewed him just 3 weeks ago about the harbor expansion project. Sam's blood turned to ice. He could see it happening in slow motion, Penelope's determined expression, James's recognition dawning, Sophia's confusion. This was it. The moment his carefully constructed world would shatter. "James, these are my friends I was telling you about," Penelope said, her eyes locked on Sam's with unmistakable purpose. "Sophia and Sam. You might know Sam from around town." James extended his hand to Sophia, then turned to Sam. His eyes widened in recognition, then confusion, then a sort of delighted surprise. "Mr. Rukin, what are you doing? Is this some kind of undercover boss situation?" "You must have me confused with someone else," Sam said desperately, but his voice cracked on the lie. "Confused?" James laughed, the sound cutting through Sam like glass. "We just did that whole spread about the harbor development. 3 hours of interviews, remember? You served me that imported coffee in your office with the view of, though I have to say, this is quite a different look from the suit and—" "What's he talking about?" Sophia's voice was small, confused, but underneath was the beginning of something else. Realization, perhaps, or betrayal. Penelope pulled out her phone with the efficiency of an executioner. "I wanted to check something I've been wondering for weeks. James, isn't this the man you interviewed?" She showed him the screen, the Gazette's website, Sam's photo, prominent above an article titled, "Rukin Shipping Expands, CEO Promises 200 New Jobs." Sophia grabbed the phone before James could answer. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, understanding, devastation, like watching a building collapse in slow motion. "That's him," James confirmed unnecessarily. "Samuel Rukin. Net worth something like 50 million, if the Forbes estimate is right, though what he's doing dressed like a dock worker." "Stop." Sophia's voice cut through everything. She was staring at the phone screen, at the photo of Sam in his expensive suit, standing in front of his office building. The same eyes, the same jaw, the same man who'd held her in a lighthouse and claimed to be nobody special. "Sophia." Sam reached for her, desperate. "Don't." The word was sharp enough to cut. "Don't you dare touch me." She looked at him then, really looked, and Sam saw the exact moment everything clicked into place. Every strange coincidence, every moment that didn't quite add up, every time he'd deflected questions about his past. "You're Samuel Rukin, the millionaire, the one who owns—" Her voice was rising now, drawing stares from festival-goers. "The docks. You own the docks. You don't work there, you own them." "I can explain." "The truck, Hudson's truck. Hudson works for you, doesn't he?" Each word was getting louder, sharper. "The greenhouse where you got the flowers for my bookmark, your greenhouse. The preserves your aunt made, your housekeeper probably. The lighthouse where we—" Her voice broke. "You own that too, don't you? You own everything, every place you took me, every humble gesture, it was all yours." Sam's silence was answer enough. "Oh my God." Sophia pressed her hand to her mouth, and for a moment Sam thought she might be sick. "The whole time, from the very beginning, from that first night at Maggie's diner, you were—" "What? Testing me? Seeing if the poor black girl would fall for you without the money? Was I an experiment? A game?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Sam? Or should I call you Mr. Rukin now? Your Highness, Master of the Harbor?" People were definitely staring now, some pulling out phones. James had the decency to look uncomfortable and mumbled something about finding his wife before disappearing. But Penelope stayed, watching with a mixture of satisfaction and sympathy. "You knew," Sophia said to her friend, and the betrayal in her voice was almost worse than the anger. "You knew, and I suspected for weeks. Then I knew for certain when I saw him at the country club last month. I tried to hint, to give him chances to tell you himself, but he didn't. So I thought you deserved to be humiliated in public." Sophia's voice was rising to a near shout. "To find out the man I love has been lying to me for 2 months in front of the whole town." You love me, Sam said desperately, clinging to this one truth. That's real. What we have is real. Sophia laughed, but it was sharp, bitter, nothing like her usual joy. It was the sound of something breaking. What we have? We have nothing. We never did. I fell in love with a dock worker who made me bookmarks and shared sandwiches and couldn't afford nice restaurants. That person doesn't exist. He's a character you played, and I'm the fool who bought the performance. He does exist. You're a millionaire who was playing dress-up. Was it fun, watching me be grateful for tiny gestures when you could have bought me anything? Listening to me talk about my dreams for a music school when you could fund it with pocket change? God, I saved for 3 weeks to take you to dinner for your birthday. I spent grocery money because I wanted to give you something special. Were you laughing at me the whole time? Never. Sophia, I would never. I wanted you to love me for me. For you. Sophia's eyes were bright with tears she wouldn't let fall. I don't even know who you are. Everything was a lie. Every single thing. Every word, every gesture, every moment. Not everything. My feelings. Your feelings. She stepped closer, and he could see the devastation in her eyes, the complete shattering of trust. You want to know what I feel? I feel stupid. I feel used. I feel like a fool who was so desperate to believe in love that I missed every red flag. Gabriel was right. He said something was off about you, but I defended you. I told him he was being paranoid. Sophia, please. Do you know what the worst part is? Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, which was somehow worse than shouting. I told you about David. I opened up about how he made me feel like a specimen, like an exotic pet. And the whole time, you were doing worse. At least he was honest about his money, about who he was. You made me fall in love with an illusion. You let me be vulnerable with someone who didn't exist. The money doesn't matter. You're right, she said. And for a moment, hope flared in Sam's chest. Then she continued. The money doesn't matter. The lying does. The manipulation does. The complete lack of respect for me, for my intelligence, for my right to make an informed choice about who I was falling in love with. That matters. You took away my agency, Sam. You decided what I could and couldn't handle. You played God with my heart. She turned to leave, but Sam caught her arm, desperate. Please, 5 minutes, let me explain, let go of me. Her voice was ice. He did, immediately, his hand dropping like it had been burned. I trusted you, she said, not looking at him, tears finally falling freely. I told you things I've never told anyone. I let you into my family, my life, my bed of dreams. My father was honest. He was a mailman who never pretended to be anything else. He would have rather died than lie to my mother about who he was. He used to say that love without truth is just manipulation. And you looked me in the eyes every day and lied. She started walking away, but turned back one more time. You know what? I could have loved you, the real you. If you'd walked into that diner as Samuel Rukin and said, I'm rich and I'm scared of being used for my money, I would have understood. I would have respected your honesty. We could have figured it out together, but you didn't give me that chance. You didn't think I was worthy of the truth. That's not... Goodbye, Mr. Rukin. She walked away, and Sam couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Around him the festival continued, music and laughter and joy, while his world collapsed. Someone was definitely filming now, and by tomorrow this would be all over town, maybe all over the internet. The millionaire who pretended to be poor, exposed at the Harvest Festival. Penelope lingered, studying him with those sharp eyes. I'm not sorry, she said. She deserved to know. I was going to tell her. When? After the wedding? After kids? When exactly were you planning to stop being a coward? The word hit like a slap. I loved her. Love her. No, Penelope said, and her words were surgical in their precision. You loved being loved by her. You loved how she made you feel. There's a difference. If you really loved her, you would have trusted her with the truth. Love without trust is just possession. She left him standing there, alone in a crowd of hundreds, some still staring, others pretending not to, while obviously discussing what they'd witnessed. Sam stood frozen until the festival lights began to blur through tears. He didn't realize he was crying. Then he walked, not to his mansion, but to the docks, to the place where he'd pretended to be someone else. The night shift was working, and several men nodded at him, not recognizing him out of his suit, not knowing their boss's world had just ended. He sat on a crate, watching the water, remembering Sophia's face when she'd realized the truth. Not just angry, but broken. He'd broken her trust, broken the beautiful thing they'd built together. His phone rang. Miles. "I heard," his partner said without preamble. "It's already all over town. The millionaire who pretended to be poor to date the librarian. Someone posted a video." "She's a piano teacher too," Sam said numbly. "Sam, I loved her, Miles. Love her. Present tense. Future tense, every tense. Then fix it. How? How do I fix lies that went on for 2 months? How do I make her believe anything I say now?" Miles was quiet for a moment. "You start with the truth, all of it, and then you let her decide if you're worth forgiving." But Sam knew, sitting there in the dark with the sound of the ocean that had witnessed their first kiss, that some things once broken could never be made whole again. Trust was like glass. Once shattered, even if you put the pieces back together, the cracks always showed. Chapter 8. The letter. The note arrived at what Sam had thought was his secret rooming house address, the one he'd given Sophia when she'd asked where he lived, a shabby building on the wrong side of town, where he'd actually rented a room just to maintain the lie. Hudson brought it to him 3 days after the festival, his weathered face carefully neutral. Sam had barely left his actual bedroom in those 3 days, hadn't shaved, had ignored 37 calls from business associates and 0 calls from the only person who mattered. "She knew you'd be here," Hudson said, setting the envelope on Sam's desk. "Don't ask me how. That woman always was too smart for her own good. Or yours." Sam's name was written on the front in Sophia's handwriting, the same elegant script that had marked sheet music he'd watched her annotate, grocery lists he'd seen on her refrigerator, love notes she'd tucked into his pocket when he wasn't looking. His hands shook as he opened it. "I hate you. You were testing me. I am not hungry for money. I gave you my heart, my trust, my dreams. You gave me lies. I told you about David, about how he made me feel like a specimen in his collection. But you made me feel like a subject in your experiment. Will the poor black woman love me without my money? Was that the question? Did I pass your test? I keep thinking about all the moments that felt so real, the lighthouse, your voice singing in my mother's living room, the bookmark you made me, which I threw away, then pulled out of the trash, then threw away again, then retrieved again because I'm pathetic, and it's the only real thing you ever gave me, your time, even if your intention was false. Did you laugh when I talked about my dreams for the music school? When I saved up to buy you that birthday dinner at Rosalie's? Did you find it quaint, amusing? God, I spent a week's grocery money on that meal because I wanted to treat you to something special, and you sat there knowing you could buy the entire restaurant without blinking. I loved you. Not past tense. That's the worst part. I still love you, or at least I love the man I thought you were. But that man doesn't exist, does he? He was just you, playing dress-up in poor people's clothes, touring poverty like it was a theme park. My mother thinks I should hear you out. Gabriel wants to break your nose. I just want to understand why. Why me? Why the elaborate deception? Why not just be yourself from the beginning? But I know the answer, don't I? Because you didn't think yourself was enough. Or worse, You thought I wasn't enough to handle the truth of you. Stay away from me, Sam, or Mr. Rukin, or whoever you are. I need time to mourn the man who never existed and the future I thought we had. P.S. The saddest part? If you'd walked into that diner as yourself, Sam Rukin, millionaire with trust issues, and been honest about your fears, about wanting to be loved for yourself, I would have understood. I would have fallen for you anyway. Because the parts of you that were real, your kindness to Lucy, your terrible jokes, the way you held me like I was precious, those would have shone through without the elaborate fiction. But now I'll never know what was real and what was performance. And that's what I can't forgive. Sam read the letter 17 times. Each reading was a fresh wound, salt in cuts that wouldn't heal. She still loved him, present tense, but loved a ghost, a fiction, a man he'd pretended to be. He grabbed his keys, headed for his car, then stopped. She'd asked him to stay away. The least he could do was respect this one wish when he'd disrespected so many others. Instead, he called Stella. "I need you to teach me something," he said. "At 2 in the afternoon? Must be serious." "Apple butter. I need to learn to make apple butter." There was a pause. "This about that girl? The one you've been lying to? How does everyone know? Small town, big gossip. Plus, Hudson's my cousin." Of course he was. Sam had never bothered to know, just as he'd never bothered to know so many things that mattered. "Will you teach me or not? Come to the kitchen." He spent the afternoon learning something he should have known already, how to make the preserves he'd claimed were a family recipe. Stella was patient, but honest. "You can't cook your way out of this mess," she said as they peeled apples. "I know. Girl like that, smart, talented, proud, she won't be bought with gestures. I'm not trying to buy her." "Then what are you trying to do?" Sam focused on the knife in his hand, the rhythm of peeling. "I'm trying to become someone worth forgiving." That's a start. Over the next week, Sam threw himself into becoming real. He learned to make preserves. He worked actual shifts at the docks, not supervising, but hauling and loading, until his soft hands blistered and bled and eventually calloused. He moved into the rooming house he'd claimed to live in, leaving his mansion empty except for staff. "You've lost your mind," Miles said, finding him one evening covered in sweat and fish scales. "Maybe, or maybe I'm finding it. She's not going to care that you're punishing yourself. This isn't punishment. This is education. I've spent 32 years insulated from reality." She was right. I was touring poverty like a theme park. Now I'm trying to actually understand it. And then what? Sam didn't have an answer for that. He saw her once, from a distance. She was leaving the library, arms full of books, laughing at something Penelope was saying. She looked beautiful and whole and utterly fine without him. The sight was both devastating and oddly comforting. She would be okay. She was strong enough to survive his betrayal. He started leaving white roses at her door, no note, no explanation, just a single white rose every morning. The first 3 were thrown in the trash. He knew because he checked. But the 4th was kept, and the 5th, and by the 2nd week, he'd see them in a vase through her window. "That's called stalking," Gabriel informed him, appearing at the docks one afternoon. "I know. She knows they're from you. I know. She cries every time she sees them." Sam's hands stilled on the rope he was coiling. "I'll stop." "Don't." Gabriel's tone was grudging. "They're the only thing that makes her play piano anymore. Sad songs, but still, music is music." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I love my sister more than I hate you, and for some reason I'll never understand she loves you. The real you, the fake you, all the versions of you." Gabriel stepped closer. "But if you come back into her life, it better be as yourself. All of yourself. No more masks, no more lies, no more protection. You show her everything, the money, the power, the fear, the damaged parts. or you leave her alone forever. Those are your only options. I choose the first. Then you better figure out who you actually are when you're not pretending to be someone else. Gabriel left, and Sam stood there holding rope, thinking about identity and truth and the man Sophia deserved. That night, he wrote his own letter. My dearest Sophia, I am Samuel Harrison Rukin. I am 32 years old. I own 60% of Bellhaven's waterfront and have more money than any one person should. I am terrified of being loved for my wealth. I am more terrified of not being loved at all. I am the man who sang in your mother's living room. That was real. I am the man who kissed you in the lighthouse. That was real. I am the man who fell in love with you the moment you walked into Maggie's diner. That was the most real thing that's ever happened to me. I am also the coward who lied to you every day for 2 months. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that while I lied about my circumstances, I never lied about my feelings. Every word of love was true. Every moment of wonder at your talent, your kindness, your strength, all true. I'm learning to make apple butter. I'm working real shifts at the docks. I'm living in that rooming house, not as punishment or performance, but as education. I'm trying to become the man you thought I was, the man you deserved from the beginning. I love you. Present tense, future tense, every tense that exists, and some that haven't been invented yet. Forever yours. Sam, just Sam, trying to earn the right to be yours again. He sealed it, but didn't send it. Not yet. He wasn't ready. He hadn't earned the right to ask for her attention, even in letter form. Instead, he kept working, kept learning, kept leaving roses at her door. And somewhere across town, Sophia kept playing sad songs and keeping those roses, waiting for something she couldn't name. Chapter 9. The longing 3 months was enough time for skin to replace itself completely, for seasons to change, for the human heart to learn new rhythms. But it wasn't enough time to forget the sound of someone's laugh, or the way they took their coffee, or how they looked in the morning light. February in Bellhaven was grey and unforgiving, the ocean the colour of old steel, the sky pressing down like a weight. Sam stood at the docks in the pre-dawn darkness, waiting for the morning shift to begin. His hands were different now, rough, scarred, capable. He'd lost 15 pounds of soft executive weight, gained muscle and calluses, and the respect of men who worked with their bodies. You don't have to keep doing this, Hudson said, appearing with 2 cups of coffee. Point's been made. What point? That you're sorry, that you're willing to suffer, that you've learned your lesson. Sam accepted the coffee gratefully, warming his hands on the cup. This isn't about making a point. I'm not sure what it's about anymore. He'd kept his promise to stay away from Sophia, though it was killing him by degrees. The white roses still appeared at her door every morning. He paid a neighborhood kid to deliver them now, couldn't trust himself to be that close to her. He heard about her through the town's gossip network. She was teaching more students, had organized a winter concert at the community center, was dating no one despite Penelope's attempts at matchmaking. She played at the church last Sunday, Hudson offered carefully. Beautiful piece. Made half the congregation cry. What was it? Something she composed, called it the Dockworkers' Waltz. Sam's throat tightened. She wrote a piece? Apparently she's been composing a lot lately. Penelope says she's got a whole notebook full, all variations on the same theme. What theme? Hudson gave him a long look. Loss. The word sat between them like a physical thing, heavy and undeniable. Across town, Sophia sat at her piano in the early morning darkness, playing the same melody she'd been refining for weeks. It was a conversation between 2 hands, the left playing a simple, honest bass line, the right spinning elaborate variations that never quite connected with the foundation below. You're going to wear grooves in those keys, Penelope said from the doorway. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough to know you're playing his song again." Sophia's hands stilled. "It's not his song." "Right. The piece you've titled The Dockworker's Waltz has nothing to do with Sam. It's about the deception, the contrast between appearance and reality. The musical theory is actually quite..." "Sophia." Penelope sat beside her on the bench. "It's been 3 months. I'm aware. He's still living in that rooming house, still working the docks. Gabriel says he looks like a different person. Good for him. The roses still come." Sophia glanced at the vase on her mantel. 7 white roses in various stages of bloom and decay. She couldn't bring herself to throw them out anymore, just added each new one to the collection. "He's respecting your wishes," Penelope continued, "staying away, but the whole town can see you're both miserable." "I'm not miserable. I'm processing. Through music. It's what I do." "Then play me the whole piece, start to finish." Sophia hesitated, then positioned her hands. The waltz began simply, 3/4 time, a melody that suggested work songs and sea shanties. Then it complicated, the right hand adding ornamentations that spoke of marble halls and crystal chandeliers. The 2 parts danced around each other, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in conflict, never quite resolving. The middle section was pure emotion, longing and anger and love twisted together in complex chords that shouldn't have worked but did. It was the lighthouse, the birthday dinner, the festival revelation, all transformed into sound. The final section brought back the simple melody, but changed, informed by everything that came before, richer for its journey through complexity, but somehow sadder too. It ended on an unresolved chord, a question hanging in the air. "That's heartbreaking," Penelope said quietly. "It's supposed to be. You still love him. I love who I thought he was." "No," Penelope said firmly. "You love who he actually is. You're just afraid to admit it because that means forgiving him." "He lied to me." "Yes, he did. Spectacularly, stupidly, completely." Penelope took Sophia's hand, but not maliciously. He was a scared, damaged man who wanted to be loved for himself. His methods were wrong, but his motivation was human. "You're defending him? You're the one who exposed him." "I exposed him because you deserved the truth. But I've watched him these 3 months. He's not playing at being poor anymore. He's actually working, actually living in that horrible rooming house, actually trying to become the man you thought he was." "Why?" "You'd have to ask him." Sophia stood abruptly, moving to the window. Outside, February was doing its best to be depressing. "I can't. If I see him, if I talk to him, You'll what?" "I'll forgive him. And I'm not ready for that." "When will you be?" "I don't know. Maybe never." But that night, Sophia found herself at the harbor, at their bench. The wood was cold through her coat, the air sharp with salt and winter. She could see the docks from here, the night shift working under floodlights. Was he there? Was he one of those anonymous figures hauling nets and crates? She'd brought the latest rose with her, twirling it between her fingers. The thorns had been carefully removed, a detail that made her chest ache. Even in his guilt, he was trying to protect her from small hurts. "Why couldn't you just tell me?" she asked the empty air. Why did it have to be such an elaborate lie? The ocean didn't answer, just kept its rhythm against the pier posts. But somewhere in that rhythm, Sophia heard it, the ghost of a waltz, 3/4 time like a heartbeat, like a promise, like a question that demanded an answer. She went home and played until dawn, the same piece over and over, changing the ending each time, searching for resolution that wouldn't come. Miles found Sam at the rooming house that evening, looking uncomfortable in the shabby surroundings. "The board is asking questions," he said without preamble. "You can't keep running the company from a boarding house. I'm handling everything that needs handling, by phone and email. Sam, you haven't been to the office in 3 months. People are talking. Let them talk. Miles studied him. You've made your point. You've proven you can live without money. Now what? Now I keep living. That's not living. It's penance, and she's not even here to see it. This isn't for her. No. Sam set down the book he'd been reading, poetry, something Sophia had mentioned loving. Maybe at first it was. But now, I needed this, Miles. Needed to know who I was without the money, without the power. Needed to work until my body ached. Needed to earn things instead of buying them. And who are you? Sam thought about it. I'm someone who loves the ocean at dawn. Who's good with his hands? Who can make apple butter from scratch now? Who reads poetry badly but with enthusiasm? He paused. Who loves a woman completely and might have lost her forever? So, go tell her that. She asked me to stay away. 3 months ago, things change. Have they? Has she forgiven me? Miles didn't answer, which was answer enough. That night, Sam wrote another letter he wouldn't send. Sophia. It's been 93 days. I've counted every one. Your roses. I hope you're keeping them. They're not apologies anymore. They're just reminders that you're thought of constantly by someone who finally understands what he lost. I dream about you. Simple dreams, grocery shopping together, you playing piano while I read, sharing coffee on Sunday mornings. I wake up and reach for you, and the empty space is a fresh wound every time. I'm different now, not better necessarily, but more real. I know what dinner costs when you're choosing between eating and heating. I know how it feels to be invisible to people with money. I know the satisfaction of earning something with sweat and pain. But mostly, I know what it's like to lose the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too afraid to trust it with the truth. I love you, still, always, even if I never get to say it to your face again. Sam. He folded it carefully, placed it with the 17 others he'd written but not sent. Someday, maybe, or never. Time would tell. The Christmas dance came and went. Neither Sam nor Sophia attended, though the whole town noticed their absence. They were the ghosts at the feast, the empty spaces that everyone talked around. Winter deepened. The roses kept coming. The waltz kept playing. 2 hearts kept beating in 3/4 time, apart, but somehow still in rhythm, waiting for a resolution that seemed impossible. But impossible things sometimes happened in small coastal towns, where the ocean kept its own time and love was patient as the tide. Chapter 10. The Truth in Music. Spring arrived tentatively in Belhaven, as if unsure of its welcome after such a hard winter. The crocuses pushed through the last stubborn snow, and the ocean gradually shifted from steel grey to something approaching blue. The Belhaven concert hall wasn't grand, just a converted church with good acoustics and red velvet seats that had seen better decades. But on this March evening, it was sold out. Sophia Benson was performing original compositions, and the whole town knew what that meant. 3 months of heartbreak transformed into music. Sam wasn't supposed to be there. He'd seen the posters around town for weeks, each one a fresh wound. An evening with Sophia Benson, original compositions. He'd bought a ticket the day they went on sale, then torn it up, then fished it out of the trash and taped it back together like a madman. Hudson had found him that morning standing outside the hall during Sophia's rehearsal, just listening through the cracked door, catching fragments of melodies that made his chest ache. "You're going tonight," Hudson had said. It wasn't a question. "She doesn't want me there." "Boy, that woman has been playing your song every day for 3 months. She's performing it tonight in public. If that's not an invitation, I don't know what is. It's a goodbye, a public funeral for what we had. Maybe, or maybe it's a question that needs an answer." So Sam sat in the back row, in shadow, wearing neither the expensive suit of Samuel Rukin nor the work clothes of his disguise, just dark jeans and a simple button-down, his hands rough now but clean, his face showing 3 months of outdoor work and sleepless nights. He'd lost weight, gained calluses, and somewhere along the way perhaps found himself. The lights dimmed. Sophia walked onto the stage, and Sam's heart stopped. She wore a simple black dress that emphasized her grace, her hair natural and free, adorned with a single white rose, one of his, he realized with a start. She looked thinner, tired around the eyes, but when she sat at the piano and placed her hands on the keys, she transformed. This was Sophia in her element, Sophia as she was meant to be. "Good evening," she said into the microphone, her voice carrying that smoky quality that had haunted his dreams. "Thank you for coming. Tonight's program is personal. These are pieces I've written over the past few months, during what we'll call a period of education." Nervous laughter from the audience. Everyone knew the story. It had become Bellhaven legend. The millionaire and the piano teacher, the deception and the revelation, the 3 months of separation that had the whole town choosing sides. "Music," Sophia continued, her fingers absently playing a few notes, "is how we tell truths too large for words. It's how we process pain and joy and love and loss. These pieces are my truth. They're about deception and discovery, about the masks we wear and the people we are underneath them, about love that persists despite betrayal." She took a breath, and Sam could see her shoulders rise and fall from across the room. "They're about a man who doesn't exist and one who does, and how sometimes they're the same person." Sam gripped the armrests of his seat hard enough to leave marks. She began to play. The first piece was angry, thunderous chords and racing passages that spoke of discovery and betrayal. Sam could hear the festival in it, the moment of revelation, the shattering of illusion. The audience sat transfixed as Sophia's hands flew over the keys, pouring 3 months of fury into sound. At one point, she hit the keys so hard Sam feared they might break, but they held, absorbing her rage and transforming it into something almost beautiful in its rawness. The second piece was searching, questioning. Melodies that started and stopped, changed direction, doubled back on themselves. It was the what-ifs and if-onlys, the constant second-guessing of every memory, wondering what was real and what was performance. Sam heard their lighthouse conversation in the wandering notes, heard her voice asking for secrets, heard his own cowardice in the unresolved progressions. The third was sorrow, a lament in minor keys that made several audience members reach for tissues. Mrs. Chen in the front row was openly weeping. It was loss, not just of a lover, but of a future, of trust, of the ability to believe in surfaces. Sam heard every morning without her in those notes, every empty evening, every moment of reaching for someone who wasn't there. Then Sophia spoke again, her voice slightly hoarse with emotion. "This next piece is called The Dock Worker's Waltz. It's about the man who never existed, except he did. He does." She looked up, scanning the audience, and for one heart-stopping moment, Sam thought she saw him. Her gaze seemed to linger on the back row, and he could swear she smiled, just slightly, just sadly. Then she placed her hands on the keys. The waltz began as Sam remembered from that morning through the door. Simple, honest, the left hand playing a working man's rhythm. Then the complications came, the ornamentations that spoke of wealth and privilege. But as the piece progressed, something changed. The two hands, which had been in conflict, began to find harmony. Not perfect, there were still dissonances, still questions, but a kind of understanding. The middle section was their story, the lighthouse kiss, a soaring melody, the birthday gift, delicate as pressed flowers, family dinner, warm and complex, every moment transformed into notes. Sam could hear his own voice in the bass line, Sophia's laughter in the treble runs. It was their entire relationship condensed into 7 minutes of music, and it was devastating in its beauty. But it was the ending that broke him. Instead of the unresolved chord she'd been playing for months, he knew because Gabriel had mentioned it. Sophia found resolution. Not a happy ending exactly, it was in a minor key, bittersweet and complex. But it was an ending that suggested acceptance, understanding, maybe even forgiveness. The last note hung in the air like a question answered. The audience erupted in applause, but Sophia held up her hand. "One more," she said, and Sam could see her hands trembling slightly. "I wrote this yesterday. It's called What Remains." She began to play, and this time it was different. This wasn't about the past, but about the present. It was every white rose, every report of Sam working the docks, every bit of town gossip about his transformation. The music spoke of watching from a distance, of a man trying to become real and a woman afraid to hope. He heard Hudson in the steady bass, the old man's constant presence and quiet wisdom. He heard Aurora's motherly concern in the gentle middle register. He heard Gabriel's protective anger in the sharp accidentals. And then, in the middle of the piece, Sophia began to sing. She'd never mentioned she could sing, had never sung for Sam in all their time together. Her voice was untrained but pure, full of emotion that made technique irrelevant. "You gave me roses white as lies, but also white as truth. You gave me love in disguise, but love nonetheless, forsooth. The man you were, the man you claimed, the man you're trying to be. Perhaps they're all the same. Perhaps you're all three. I watch you from my window, working in the morning light, no longer in your tower, no longer out of sight. And I wonder if the fiction was more honest than it seemed. If the man I thought I knew was the man you always dreamed. So here's my waltz, my question, my heart laid bare in song. Can love, built on deception, still be where we belong?" The piece built to a crescendo that was question and answer both, ending on a major chord that rang with possibility. The audience was on its feet before the last note faded. The applause was thunderous, but Sophia wasn't looking at them. She was staring directly at the back row, directly at Sam. "I know you're here," she said into the sudden silence that fell when she raised her hand. "Back row, in shadow, trying to be invisible. But you were never invisible to me. Even when you were lying, I saw you. The real you, underneath all the pretense." Every head in the theater turned. Sam felt exposed, pinned like a butterfly to a board. He saw Gabriel in the third row, his expression unreadable. Aurora beside him, tears on her cheeks. Penelope, no longer triumphant but hopeful. Hudson, who must have snuck in after Sam, nodding encouragement. "Stand up," Sophia said, and it wasn't a request. He did, though his legs felt like water. The walk to the stage was the longest of his life. He was aware of whispers, of people pulling out phones, of the weight of the entire town's attention. But mostly he was aware of Sophia, standing by the piano, watching him approach with eyes that gave nothing away. He stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at her. She was crying, he realized, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice broke completely. "I'm so sorry. For the lies, for the deception, for not trusting you with the truth, for taking away your choice, for being a coward, for breaking the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me because I was too scared to believe it was real." "I know." She moved to the edge of the stage, sat down so they were eye level. This close, he could see every detail, the faint circles under her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly, the white rose in her hair that was beginning to wilt. "I've been angry for 3 months, furious, heartbroken. I've played that waltz 1,000 times, changing the ending every time, trying to find one that didn't hurt." "Did you?" "Number. They all hurt, because they all led to the same truth. I still love you. Despite everything, because of everything, I love you. Sophia. But Hudson told me something last week. He said you haven't touched your fortune except to make anonymous donations to the community center's music program. Sam's eyes widened. He thought those had been secret. He also said you've been living in that rooming house, really living there, working double shifts at the docks, learning to make apple butter from scratch. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. He brought me a jar. It was actually good. I wanted to become the man you thought I was. I don't want that man, Sophia said, and Sam's heart cracked. Then she continued, that man was perfect, simple, uncomplicated. That man didn't exist. I want the real one, the one who owns half the harbor but sang in my mother's living room with a voice that made angels jealous. The one who could buy anything but spent hours making me a bookmark that I still keep on my nightstand. The complicated, contradictory, terrified, brave, lying, truthful man who loved me enough to try to change, but not enough to trust me with who he really was. I trust you now, with everything. Do you? Then tell me, why did you really do it? Not the surface reason, not the fear of gold diggers, the real reason. Sam took a breath, feeling the weight of the entire town's attention, but he spoke only to Sophia. Because my mother died when I was 15, and the last thing she said to me was, make sure whoever loves you loves the boy I raised, not the fortune you inherited, and I've been trying to find that boy ever since. When I met you, when I pretended to be him, for the first time in 17 years, I felt like her son again, not the heir, not the CEO, just Sam, and I was terrified that if you knew about the money, I'd lose that. I'd lose the only time I'd felt real since she died. Sophia stood, moved back to the piano, played a few notes, their waltz, but softer now, gentler. You asked who I'd choose, the millionaire or the dock worker. The answer is neither, and both. I choose Sam, whoever that is, whatever that means, the man who just stood up in front of this entire town and told the truth. After everything I did, you lied. It was horrible and hurtful, and I may never fully trust you the same way again. That's the truth, but you lied out of fear, not malice. You lied because you'd been hurt too, because you were scared of being used, of not being enough. She played another chord, this one in major. I understand fear. I understand protecting yourself. What I don't understand is giving up. I never gave up. The roses, I know. I kept everyone. She gestured to the one in her hair. Even when I wanted to hate you, I kept them. Do you know why? Sam shook his head. Because they were real, not the gesture. Gestures can be empty, but the consistency. Every day for 3 months, no matter what. That's not a performance, Sam. That's devotion. Sophia, I'm not finished. She stood from the piano, faced him fully. I'm considering forgiving you. On conditions. Anything. No more lies, ever. About anything. Even small things. Even things you think will hurt me. Done. You move back to your real house, but we take things slow. Start over, properly this time. No hiding, no pretense. If we go to dinner, we go wherever we want. If you want to buy me something, you ask first. No more deciding what I can or can't handle. Okay. And you sing with me at the spring concert. The real you. Not the millionaire, not the dock worker, just Sam. Sophia. She pulled out a card from her pocket, handed it to him. The entire theater held its breath. He opened it with trembling fingers. Sam, I love you. Present tense, all of you. The wealthy man, the worker, the coward, the romantic, the liar who was trying to find truth. You were testing me, but I was testing you too. Testing if you were worth the pain of forgiveness, worth the risk of trying again. You passed. Come home, not to your mansion or the rooming house, but home to me. All my love. Sophia. P.S. The apple butter was actually good. Hudson, let me try it. Your mother would be proud of the man you're becoming, both versions of him. Sam looked up from the card to find Sophia crying, and then he was crying too. And then somehow he was on the stage. He didn't remember climbing up. And they were kissing while the entire theater erupted in applause, and someone, definitely Penelope, shouted, "Finally!" And someone else, probably Hudson, yelled, "About damn time!" They broke apart, laughing and crying simultaneously. Sophia grabbed his hand, turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "I'd like you to meet Sam. Just Sam. He's complicated and imperfect, and he makes excellent apple butter. He owns most of the harbor and he works the docks. He's rich in money and poor in trust, but we're working on that." She squeezed his hand. "He's the man I love, in all his contradictions." "Can I say something?" Sam asked. Sophia nodded. Sam faced the audience, his employees, his neighbors, strangers who'd followed the story. "I lied to this woman, and to all of you. I presented myself as something I wasn't because I was afraid of being seen for what I was. But Sophia saw me anyway. She saw through the performance to the person underneath, and she loved him even when she hated me. That's a gift I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve." He turned back to Sophia. "I love you. No masks, no pretense, no safety net. Just me, terrified and grateful and completely yours." "Good," she whispered back, "because I have about 30 more pieces to write about you, and I need new material." They kissed again as the curtain fell, and somewhere in the wings, Hudson wiped his eyes and muttered something about young fools and second chances and how love always finds a way. Later, much later, after the reception and the explanations and Gabriel's grudging handshake that turned into an unexpected hug, Sam and Sophia walked along the harbor, not their old harbor. That belonged to the fiction they'd built. This was a new harbor, one where truth lived alongside beauty, where a millionaire could hold hands with a piano teacher and both could be themselves. The moon was full, turning the ocean to molten silver. They stopped at the pier's end, where they'd stood so many times before, but different now. Real now. "So," Sophia said, "tell me about your house, your real house." "It's too big," Sam said honestly. 15 rooms for one person, but it has a music room with perfect acoustics and a view of the ocean." "Sounds perfect for a music school." Sam stopped walking. "Sophia, not yet. We're taking it slow, remember? But someday, when we're ready, when trust is rebuilt and love is steady, I want to turn that ridiculous mansion into something useful. Haven House of Music, remember?" "I remember everything, every word, every moment, every note of that waltz." "Good, because I'm going to keep playing it, but from now on, it resolves properly." They stood at the pier's end, where the ocean met the sky, where truth met fiction and became something new entirely. "Play me something," Sam said. "Something new." Sophia laughed. "I don't have a piano here." "Then sing." And she did, her voice carrying over the water, singing not of loss or betrayal, but of possibility, of love that survives deception, of truth that emerges from lies like crocuses through snow. Sam joined her on the harmony, his voice rough from work and salt air but true. They sang together as the moon rose higher over Belhaven, two voices finding harmony after months of discord. The ocean kept time, three-quarter rhythm like a waltz, like a heartbeat, like love itself, complicated, constant, and absolutely impossibly real. Above them, the lighthouse stood witness to this new beginning, its light sweeping over water and shore alike, no longer hiding anything in shadow. And in that light, Sam and Sophia stood revealed, not perfect, not simple, but honest at last. The waltz played on, but now it had words and harmony and hope. It had a future that neither millionaire nor dockworker could have imagined, but that Sam and Sophia, just themselves, complicated and real, could finally build together. As they walked home, to his mansion that would become their music school, to her apartment that would become their sanctuary, to the life they would create from truth and trust and patient love. Sophia hummed the waltz one more time, but this time it resolved perfectly, every note in its proper place, every chord complete. Epilogue. 1 year later. The Haven House of Music opened on a Tuesday in April because Sophia insisted important things shouldn't wait for convenient days. The mansion had been transformed, walls knocked down to create practice rooms, the ballroom converted into a performance space. The formal dining room now housed a lending library of instruments. But Sam's favorite addition was the small room off the kitchen where Sophia taught her private students, the same room where he'd first heard her play the dockworkers' waltz in their home. "Stop hovering," Sophia called from the piano, where Lucy, now 8 and even more precocious, was struggling through a Bach invention. "You're making her nervous." "I'm not hovering," Sam protested, though he was definitely hovering. "I'm observing." "Go observe the dock delivery. The new pianos should be here soon." He kissed her goodbye, still a small miracle being able to do that casually, and headed for the door. On his hand, a simple gold band caught the light. They'd married in winter, a small ceremony at the lighthouse where they'd first kissed. No lies this time, just truth and promises, and Hudson crying openly in the front row. As Sam supervised the piano delivery, 3 new Steinways, donated anonymously, though everyone knew who the donor was. He could hear music spilling from every window of Haven House, scales and arpeggios and mistakes and triumphs, the sound of dreams being nurtured regardless of ability to pay. "You did good, boy," Hudson said, appearing with his characteristic ability to materialize from nowhere. "We did good," Sam corrected. "None of this happens without her." "True enough. She's still composing?" "Every morning. She's working on a symphony now. She's calling it Variations on Truth." Hudson snorted. "Bit on the nose, isn't it?" "That's Sophia, subtle as a foghorn when she wants to be." They watched the pianos being unloaded, listened to the music cascading from the house. Somewhere inside, Sophia was teaching Lucy that music was magic and mistakes were just jazz waiting to happen. Somewhere else, Gabriel was teaching drumming to kids who'd never held sticks before. Even Aurora came twice a week to teach music theory, though she spent most of the time feeding everyone. "Any regrets?" Hudson asked. Sam thought about it. The money still existed, but it had purpose now. The harbor still ran, but with profit sharing that made every worker an owner. The mansion still stood, but filled with music instead of silence. "One," Sam said finally. Hudson raised an eyebrow. "I wish I'd told her the truth from the beginning. Saved us both those 3 months of pain." "Maybe," Hudson said, "but then you wouldn't have learned to make apple butter, and I wouldn't have won $50 betting on you two getting back together. You bet on us. The whole town did. You two were better than cable television for entertainment." From the house came the sound of Sophia's laughter, followed by Lucy's delighted squeal. Then piano music, not the dockworkers' waltz, but something new, something that sounded like spring and second chances and truth told in major keys. "No," Sam said, reconsidering, "no regrets. Every lie led to this truth. Every wrong note led to this harmony." He headed back to the house, to his wife, to the life they'd built on honesty and trust, and the knowledge that love wasn't about perfection, but about choosing each other, again and again, despite the imperfections. At the door, he paused. Through the window, he could see Sophia at the piano, teaching Lucy but also learning from her, how to find joy in simple progressions, how to make mistakes into music, how to love without reservation or disguise. She looked up, caught his eye through the glass, smiled that smile that had stopped his world in a diner 2 years ago. But now it was deeper, richer, informed by pain and forgiveness and the complex harmonies of real love. He smiled back, then went inside to join the music. The waltz played on, no longer about deception, but about discovery, not about the masks we wear, but about the faces underneath, beautiful in their truth. And in Belhaven, where the ocean kept its own time and spring came when it was ready, Sam and Sophia made music together, complicated, honest, and absolutely real.